So, that being said, welcome to Black Man Spy Day 46 again. One of our sharp-eyed listeners noticed that we were off. We had skipped a number at one point back in the 30s, and she notified us that we were off. So this is Groundhog's Day for the U.S.-Iran war. We're going to do this day all over again. And based on the activities that have occurred, there's no problem doing that. It is also day 6 of the supposed U.S.-Iran ceasefire. And with that, let me introduce you to our host. We have Jacob Kaarsbo, who's coming to us from Copenhagen, Denmark, Danish intelligence officer extraordinaire, Middle East expert, and our geopolitical cultural attaché, reporting from the wilds, the Saudi royal family member, reporting from the wilds of Minnesota, Wajeeh the gay lion. Well, guys,
Good morning.
first, before we get into politics, we're still waiting for people to come on. I know we didn't put out the scheduled post yesterday. I was literally writing it when I got a call from the BBC. I did 4 BBC shows yesterday. BBC Television, BBC Radio, BBC Scotland, and nope, it wasn't BBC. The 4th one was Australian Broadcasting. And I have to do New Zealand. So we're getting around. I'm becoming the Jacob Kaarsbo of the world, where everybody wants my opinion. Everybody wants a piece of the Malcolm. And my opinion is whatever it is, right? So that being said, Watch, you're beating us in the hat department. I say keep it up. Looking like Nehru Gandhi there. But what are we doing in the coffee cup department? Jacob, what do you got? Where's that? New York?
New York City.
I could tell by the Empire State Building. Wajeeh is still sporting his Italian cup made in China.
Yesterday I had Wonder Woman, but you didn't pay attention.
What? No, you didn't. Wonder Woman. All right,
did.
I didn't see that. Did anybody else see it? All right. Well, I am sporting my nice people coffee cup. I intend to get the single gaudiest coffee cup when I go down to a gift shop here later that I'm going to turn into my permanent Canada cup. But I am chock full of Canadian brew. And even though I was up till midnight last night and was just dog-piled by dogs. So we're close enough. I guess we can start our day. Oh, guys, I swear to God, just utterly amazing ridiculousness that went on in the last day. And I'm not just talking about the Persian Gulf, right? I'm talking about the madness that is Mad King Donald the Last. I was reading a post by George Conway the other day where he said he put out some incredible number of posts. He was up at 2:30 in the morning putting out dozens of posts on Truth Social, including the one that depicted him as Jesus Christ healing the sick, and which is pretty amazing. And then he was forced to take it down. Trump, the only post Trump has ever taken down was the insulting racist post of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, arguably the nicest person to have ever, no, that's number 2, the second nicest person, first family to have ever sat in the White House. We all know who the nicest was, right? The one who was truly sitting next to the hand of everybody's God, and that's Jimmy Carter and Marilyn Carter. They are just selfless people who spent, after leaving the presidency, every day of their lives building houses for poor people. Jimmy Carter died at 98, right? And he was working on a house the day before he died. right hand of God. The Carters were without any question the best people to have ever sat in the White House. People always said, why are they even in the White House, right? So, and also the least corrupt next to Obama. Obama administration had zero, they had multiple investigations, zero corruption in the White House. So Trump put out that racist photo, and now this one of him as Jesus Christ with his hand on the head. And the funny thing is, Jon Stewart of The Daily Show did an analysis, and it appears that they had made Jon Stewart the sick guy in the bed. I mean, identical.
And he was like,
So Jesus Trump was healing the sick Jew, Jon Stewart.
you can find the
Weird.
clip
Poor John yesterday.
on the Daily
He was
Show.
so shocked.
It was hilarious.
It was too much. It's too much for all of us. All right,
I've
we have
also
1,000.
seen someone
Yes.
who made a little adjustment, and then it was Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, Jon Stewart was unedited. That was the original one, and it really looked like Jon Stewart. There's also an animated version where Jesus comes down and smacks Trump in the face and knocks him to the pits of hell. So I don't even want to
the
start.
Iranians, this united the Iranians with the Pope. I don't know if you saw that.
Let's not even get into that. We could be here for the next hour. I won't show it, but I'm sorry. The Iranian propaganda machine.
Yeah.
Really, the Democratic Party should just hire these people. Explosive Media. They put out another Lego video yesterday of Melania Trump. And I'm telling you, these people are murderous, right? The reason their propaganda works, when I was at Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School, our chief political advisor and our school seer advisor was a guy who was captured and held in the Hanoi Hilton for 3 years by the name of Doug Hegdahl. Doug Hegdahl was a 19-year-old kid who was on the tail end of a U.S. warship that was bombarding Haiphong Harbor when he slipped and fell overboard. He tread water for a day and was picked up by Vietnamese fishermen. His ship left him and was picked up by Vietnamese fishermen. And by laws of international sea, he should have been returned back to the United States as a abandoned mariner. But they took him, made him a prisoner of war, put him in the Hanoi Hilton. Doug, after he came out of the Hanoi Hilton, they let him, he was ordered to go home. He was ordered to go home where he had memorized the names, I think it's of all 256 people who were captured in the Hanoi Hilton, all of their names. And when he got released on orders, he was ordered to be released, right? The North Vietnamese said, would you like to be repatriated? And he pretended like he did, and they let him go. He brought back the names of every person in there, and they found there were like 17 names the U.S. government did not know about. So he was a great guy, but he was the political propagandist at our SEER school when we held you in simulated captivity. This guy was so good. He said true propaganda mixes truth, half-truths, and lies, but it comes out as a viable package. He had convinced me when I was in SEER school, this was during Monica Lewinsky, that Bill Clinton had pardoned everyone in the Monica Lewinsky scandal, including himself. And when I got out of school, I ran to the newspapers to check this, and he had lied. It was all a masterful piece of propaganda based on true story, Monica Lewinsky, half-truths, Clinton wanted to get out of it, and lies that he had done this. And he had me convinced. To this day, I'm still checking the papers. That guy was brilliant. But he said when I asked him later, when I was an instructor, he said he used only the techniques that the North Vietnamese used on him and the other captives. And so he really understood the brilliance of propaganda. These Lego videos are truths a lot more truths, right? And then inference that build out sympathy to them. It's, to be quite honest, I'm having a hard time finding out where they're actually using lies. The only place I see the actual lies is their successes against the US military. That's just obviously patently lies. They're losing everything and they have some successes. But they're slick as shit, boy. I'm sorry. Iranian propaganda, whoever this is has got a job for the rest of his life. He'll be doing elections all over the third world, all over the world. And I wouldn't be surprised to see if somebody hired him. But his new one on Melania Trump is brutal, baby. Brutal. Just ruthless.
Did you see the one where they named the new company Pillowflix? It's true.
No.
It's true. Yeah. It
All
was
right.
posted by the Iranian embassy in South Africa.
Oh
You know
my
what?
God.
I find it amazing how they still have the ability
I'll
through
find it.
cables to task out embassies to release certain videos. The other day, the one that was about Trump being a loser came from the embassy in Thailand. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. All right. Enough levity for one bit of time. We have done our
Yeah.
daily TV host, light-hearted banter. Let's get down to the war. Wajeeh, can you please give us the casualty count?
Yes, I think it's not gonna be helpful. Well, maybe. Let's see. Um,
Always helpful.
well, helpful if I change the camera or not. But Iran, we still don't have a clear number because there's still a lot of rebel. They're still clearing out a lot of the buildings. There's still a lot of dead people that we haven't found yet. The estimate is between 3,375 people killed to 7,650 people killed. So it's a wide margin, but there's a good chunk of people. Very sad. 26,500 injured. In Israel, we have 40 killed, 7,693 people injured. Lebanon, more than 2,089 people killed and 6,762 injured. The United States casualty is mostly from the U.S. military, where they have uh, 15 killed and 538 people injured. The UAE has 13 killed, 228 people injured. The Iraq has 46 killed and 178 people injured. Kuwait 10 and 109. That's about it.
All right.
And then I can move to oil prices if you'd like.
Yes, please.
WTI is down at 95, 93. I am still confused why that is at the moment. I'm still looking into it.
Yeah, you know what? It was a drop, and here's why. Yesterday, we noticed a strategic release of information to Donald Trump's newest mouthpiece is Barack Ravid at Axios. And he announced that the White House was looking to resume peace talks this week again. And the first not even the comment, it was released with this quote tweet, right? The Trump Axios market manipulation scheme is in full play. And it happened minutes after the blockade started.
Yeah.
They don't miss a beat. And so oil jumped up to 105, then went down back to 98, where it was 1 minute before the blockade was announced.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they are playing this market. Money is being made here.
The interesting thing is the Morban has actually gone up.
Ah, yeah. Well, what's murder bond crude at? Let me see.
103.51.
103. Yeah. Well, Again, I want to caution everybody that these numbers are oil futures. They're on future contracts as being signed. The spot market is still in the 150 range, physical oil in the Gulf, right? So just pay attention to that. So let me see. I don't know where all these things are coming from. Whoa, these are not my bookmarks. All right. So here's a comment I'd like everybody to watch. I do not normally engage in watching anything from Russia today, but this video is an interview with a captain who has been stuck in the Gulf for 45 days.
Oh my God.
And he's talking about the impact of this on the whole world, not just on the market or his vessel. And it's very good, even though it's on Russia today. So watch this.
Is affecting many countries recently. In fact, yesterday I read somewhere it has already affected around 5 billion people. 5 billion, it's a huge number. And economy has been affected by 40 to 50% in many countries. So it is affecting a huge load of mankind, especially the eastern part of world, which in Asian countries, many Asian countries, India, Bangladesh, Philippines, Korea, Japan, China, many other countries. Yes, it is affecting day to day, day by day. Each and every small things are getting affected. The shortage of gas, shortage of fuel, shortage of fertilizers. There are many things. Each and every department is getting affected, and day by day it will keep affecting. Nowadays it is plantation time in India. Let's say, I'm from India. It is plantation time. So right now we have to do planting, and then we have to use the fertilizers. But yes, we are really short of fertilizers. And it will affect our food supplies in future. So of course we have sufficient stock of food in India. So, but how long will it go like this? That food inflation will happen definitely in coming few months. It will definitely high. All the prices will high definitely. So it is affecting everyone.
Yeah. I think the phrase that's missing from all of our analyses, I always end up with the phrase collapsing the global economy. But what we're really seeing here is we are seeing the collapse of the global supply chain, because at some point, ships cannot move when diesel is 5 times the cost. You can't plant food because the supply chain cannot bring you chemicals. The chemicals cannot be produced because a ballistic missile has hit them. A ship cannot go and pick up the fertilizer, the urea, and move that because it's blocked in the Strait of Hormuz. If it gets put over onto a truck, it might take 300 trucks just to go across the UAE and put that onto a ship in Fujairah, where it may wait for months. Then that ship that comes and gets it is going to have fuel costs that are 5 times what was before, right? Then it goes over to India, and everyone down below them has to pay all of that cost. So that fertilizer bag, like we buy at Home Depot or Lowe's, which comes from China, most of it, right? The Chinese have banned all exports of fertilizer. Banned. That means if y'all at Home Depot and you need fertilizer this year, better get it today, right? The price has probably already doubled from $3 to $6 a bag. But in a couple of months, there won't be any, right? If this continues on. And I'm just talking fertilizer. So it's not about your plants. It's about people in India who are subsistence farmers, right? From hand to mouth, from ground to hand to mouth. And they sell this on the open market in a country with 1 billion people. Let's just focus on India. What happens if there are food shortages? You're not, oh, and you think, oh, well, they'll just bring food from other parts of the world. How? On rickety trucks that are now paying 3 times more for diesel? On ships that are going to do what? Bring luxury food from Europe around the Cape of Good Hope, around South Africa to India? You can't even get processed foods from China because they've got how many going on 2 billion people that they have to feed, and they too are getting no fertilizer other than what they are producing themselves. The knock-on effects, primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary effects of this affect every person on earth, and people are going to starve. And that could lead to civil unrest. In a country like India, they have food riots, right? They had food riots. They have famine, right? Somebody, Uncle Mark, you just said it. Less food equals famine, right? People will die. People are dying of this. And I want to make a little comment. I was going to save it, but the International Energy Association, there you go. I'm going to move this over so you can see it. Actually, let me see if I can bring it up in the screen. International Energy Association cuts oil outlook to the largest disruption in history. They predict the sharpest decline in oil demand since the COVID pandemic on the Iran war and the Strait of Hormuz impacts. And somebody asked, wait, you mean more disruptive than the 1973 oil embargo? Well, the 1973 oil embargo was Saudi Arabia flexing its muscles, right, on how much oil it controlled. It only impacted oil futures at that time, right? And those, all the lines in the United States, that's because gasoline went from 25 cents a gallon to 75 cents a gallon. I remember back in the old days when I was a teenager, gas was 10 cents a gallon in parts of the world. And the Saudis cut that off and suddenly understood the value of what it was. The oil shock wasn't the disruption of oil. The oil shock was U.S. companies understanding they could make 3 times the amount of money in gasoline by raising their prices and claiming it was the Saudis. Now, this Donald Trump, and we needed to call it the Trump shock, is the single largest disruption of energy in history.
Yeah.
History.
Mhm.
Utterly
Yeah.
amazing. What do you guys think?
Can I would love to say some stuff about this, especially because we're tapping into oil in Saudi Arabia. And so King Faisal, when he decided to flex the Saudi muscle on uh, making an embargo against the United States,
Mm-hmm.
It definitely showed the Saudi government the power of holding the oil from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely changed the U.S. national security strategy, considering the oil reserve and oil production in the United States, where the United States passed laws considering oil production a matter of national security, where currently the United States uses most of the oil that it produces. Most of the oil it uses, it's from the oil it produces.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Meaning, there are no longer so many imports of oil from Saudi Arabia because of that particular issue. And we made it very hard and very difficult for the US to sell oil to foreign countries. Hence why we have made the pipeline all the way from Canada to uh to ports down in the Gulf, so it would be at a warmer place and the US could sell oil.
Right.
Now the United States is deciding to release its national security reserve to sell to us because we no longer have the global economy is so dependent on oil. We have to sell it to other countries to make money, to take advantage of the situation. And that's the same stockpile that we use for our F-35s. That's the
Right.
same stockpile we use for our ships. That's the same stockpile that we give you for emergencies. That's number one. Number two, why is that affecting your pocket if we are producing most of the oil that we are making? That's a very good question. All of the imports that you have, the United States is a consumption economy, not a production economy, and a service economy, meaning we produce more services than goods. We consume
Right.
more foreign goods than we produce goods. And then what that makes it, so if it's very expensive for China to make their product, if it's very expensive for Korea to make their product, if it's very expensive for South America to make their product, it's going to be very, very, very expensive on you. That's why. Only 8% of the oil that America uses now comes from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. You know what?
Just to give you an idea,
You
that's it.
you brought up a brilliant point, and I want to show this analysis. This is something I don't think Americans understand. You hear the crazy talk from Trump saying the United States, we're pumping our own oil, drill, baby,
Drill,
drill.
baby, drill.
Well, this is a good analysis that was made by a woman named Carolina Linen. It must be a relative of yours. Oil fields are producing 13.4 millions of barrels of oil per day in the United States, right? Hold that number, 13.4. But American refineries need 16.6 millions of barrels of oil per day to operate at maximum capacity. The United States itself consumes 20.2 million barrels of oil. Anyone telling you the Middle East blockade is going to economically benefit the average American is lying or dumb. We are at an oil deficit. We are operating without the oil that we need. We are starting our day 4 million barrels in the hole. So when you hear Trump say stupid shit like, "Oh, their tankers are coming to the United States every day." You're right. They're coming to the United States every day full of oil from another country. Because and coming through the Canadian pipelines full of oil because the United States is a furnace. And we can't produce enough oil in America to keep that furnace burning. Therefore, we have to have a fuel delivery truck come every day of an additional 4.4 million barrels to meet our energy needs. Now, on top of all of this, by the way, 20% of that was cut. So if this is 20% of the fucking blood in your body suddenly cut off, what do you think would happen to your heart? Well, we know Donald Trump's brain already has 20% cut off, so he's getting nothing up there, which is why he's doing these pathologically crazy things, right? I am not saying this because I don't like Donald Trump. I don't. I have written 4 New York Times best-selling books about his relationship with Russia that have all come true, all right? But what he's doing makes no sense economically, politically, socially? It's Mad Libs, right? I keep saying this. It's mental illness as foreign policy. It starts here and it ends here. And what's in between, thinks it's great. So he thinks destroying what remains of the oil that's coming out. You know, one last thing. Oil is not a pipeline. It's not a circulatory system. It's a swimming pool, right?
Mhm.
And if that swimming pool goes low, the price of oil goes high. It's literally the blood in your body. And if you're hemorrhaging 20% of your blood, at some point, the system is going to have your system is going to stop functioning, right? Your heart will have a heart attack. Your brain will start losing consciousness and you will die as you bleed out. Donald Trump, instead of putting a freaking tourniquet on this, decided that he was going to open another vein on the other arm, right? I mean, it's weird. No, let me rephrase that. He
Interesting, but
decided to put a tourniquet here across your neck.
But
no.
meanwhile, the Iranians know all this. The Iranians know all this. And that's why they are sipping an extra sweet cup of mint tea, because they know that this blockade of the blockade is going to, suck more for Donald Trump and the West than
Yep.
it is for them. So they'll wait it out. And just Trump's propaganda is spewing out all this shit about oil from Venezuela and blah 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 blah.
Bullshit.
No,
It's bullshit. It's in his head.
It's complete bullshit.
I love this tweet.
The sad part is that even in Europe, where we've had the energy shock before, after Russia invaded Ukraine, we haven't even, we can count ourselves fortunate because we've invested a lot in green transition and so on. Because the only way around all this shit is bringing down your dependency on oil and bringing down demand.
Trump is going on a jihad against green energy. He's paying a French company $1 billion, more money than they actually spent on the wind farm, to stop building the biggest wind farm in the United States off the coast. And it's not even on land, it's in the coast.
He's done that same stuff to a Danish company.
He's crazy.
Well, but anyway, let me just finish this, because it's very important to understand that we, even here in Europe, where we realize this stuff, most of us still have right-wing, not Trumpist parties, but populist parties. They've had to distance themselves to Trump because of Greenland and all this madness. But anyway, they make the same argument now that we should lower VAT on oil to help our the users, and we should also invest in this, and then take that money from green transition to put into this, and that is so stupid. So yeah, we even have these donkeys in Europe.
This post is brilliant. This is JR. If you guys remember, if you're my age, there was a big TV show. This is back when in the United States, one show would dominate the whole media. And what was the name of that show? Dallas, right? Dallas.
It was Dallas.
And this is J.R. Ewing, the oil magnate, who was shot in the show. The big thing in the show was who shot JR. I don't know, but I lived in Texas. Anyone who had a hat like this definitely should have been shot. But the post is, Texas oil men watching the world show up at U.S. ports to outbid American refineries for crude. So now we have actually opened up another vein in the body, and the United States refineries are not getting oil from overseas because other countries are outbidding them. The U.S. is already at 2.2 million barrel deficit. They are about to get, I like this, they are about to get a windfall, and you are about to get a massive spike in gas prices. Utterly amazing how ignorant people are of the global energy and trade system. And we have these people out there, MAGA people, who are like, I hate globalism. We fucking invented globalism. The end of World War II, every product we made, we sold off all of our Jeeps, we sold refrigerators and all these things. America invented globalism. Right? Well, that's not true. The British had a monopoly on it. The British had a monopoly on it for about 8 centuries. But we really, boom, every person in the world could get American products at the end of World War II. That required global trade, and Britain and the United States created the global oil market as it exists. And we have people out there like, we producing our own oil. We're 2.2 million barrels short every day. And we're creating AI, which has produced these massive, massive amounts of need for spot energy right there just to power these plants. Do you think any of these guys are asking for nuclear power? Nope. They all want oil. They all want natural gas, but not one of them wants to use solar or wind. It's insanity. It's national suicide. And then Trump goes, let's blockade that 20%, right? That's like turning the
Yeah.
tourniquet another five turds.
Yeah. But
Absolutely stupid.
it is completely stupid.
Sorry,
But
guys.
turning that 180 degrees, because what he's been trying to do until Sunday was actually to alleviate all that, and that was why he removed sanctions on Iran and on Russia. And then suddenly he realized, no, we got to try something else. And then in this stupid idea that Iran should succumb to economical pressure, it's just nonsensical. Mad. It
All
makes
right.
matters worse.
If you don't mind me giving the audience a fun fact,
Okay, fun
when
facts.
I was
Yay.
studying when I was studying geology with my Iraqi professor specializing in oil, if you pump out oil so fast, the oil has a little bit of regeneration. If you pump it slowly, there is a small recovery. But if you pump it so fast, that recovery goes away. Very similar to if you pump out the water from a well so fast, that well will dry. But if you pump out the water slowly, that well will re-up
The table will
automatically.
fill that little gap. Right.
And
Yes.
if the US is gonna do a lot of fracking and going to be pumping out a lot of oil real quick because of the current situation, I fear that we might be running out of our reserves or endangering our reserve of drying, going dry. Thank you.
Right. Somebody made a comment about SUVs being so popular. And I have a guy, he's a handyman, works around my house. He's rebuilding a one of my um fireplaces in one of the parlors. I have parlors. And he's rebuilding this fireplace with brick. And he shows up in his ex-girlfriend's little Toyota, right? And I'm like, what the hey, man? Where's your truck? He goes, I can't afford to fill it. This is a lower this guy is a lower class blue collar worker. He has kids of his own. He has an old pickup truck, an old Ford F-150 with, the kind, it has the rusted out fenders and everything. He bought it for like $1,000. And he goes, I can't afford to fill it. He goes, that truck would be $100 to fill it. And it only gets about 12 miles per gallon or less when he's driving around town, right? It's a truck from the 1990s or something. And, this is what average people really live like. They really live like this. So, I said, hey, I know you need to come here. I know you're bringing your son to do work around the yard. So I gave him a sort of a fuel subsidy on that because I need him, right? I need him to do this work. But if I were a business, I would be passing off whatever I paid to him and his fuel bill to you, the consumer, right? Fundamentally, I think Trump sees oil as a word, and he doesn't understand that there are finite amounts, that there's these reservoirs, and he sees them as places to be looted. He doesn't understand the flows of it as the body, right? Being the blood in the global body. And I don't think he gives a fuck. And that's why when he sees a cut in the neck of the world, or not a cut, that somebody is putting the Vulcan pressure point on this artery go into the brain and cuts 20% of it. His solution is, I will intimidate you into taking your hand off by putting a noose around the neck and twisting it so that I can kill the body of the world faster. That's the best analogy I can come up with. And then you'll release your hand off the pressure point. Yeah, but in 2-3 weeks, the entire global economy, the energy pathway could crash. And he doesn't care or understand, because this is about Donald Trump being the best, is being freaking Jesus with his hand on the head of Jon Stewart. This is madness, guys. Let's call it for what it is. I always say this. If this were the president of Burkina Faso, or that lieutenant who's running Chad, or, the junta in Myanmar,
Captain.
right? Yeah. If this were any of these countries, my intelligence report would be, the man has a mental illness and is running the country into the ground on the basis of voodoo and goat dung interpretations, right? By the way, that's a thing. So, I've seen these Krikri ladies, they'll look through goat poop and see what your future holds. This is madness. And the man with his finger on 4,500 atomic bombs, guys, is killing the world deliberately because he thinks it'll make him look good. I said this on BBC yesterday. I'll say it again. He needs an off-ramp. And with that, let's move on. I know we're getting on to our ranty rant time. We can go over today because Jacob, I don't know if you have time past 10 o'clock, but I want to talk a little about the boycott, the blockade.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yesterday, I had a great interview with the BBC, and I left them for about 5 minutes, which is a long time. And I left them speechless when I talked about the implications of the global blockade and just how very bad it could get for all of us. But let's talk about the fundamentals. A blockade is a naval action or air action, ground action, in which one cuts off supplies, foodstuffs, all industry going in and out of a country, right? Right now, Trump has ordered a naval blockade of all oil that is originating in Iranian ports. That oil is supposed to go from an Iranian port and out through the Strait of Hormuz, right? And you see here, these are the Iranian ports up here. Back there, Siri Island's back there. That's Greater Tomb, Abu Musa, Lesser Tomb. That's Siri Island right there. That's Lavon Island right there. You can pick up oil there. But then it goes up here
We
through.
can't see your hand. You gotta move the camera.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So
You
I'm
can't see it?
pointing at the same time.
Okay. Anyway, if you look at these lines, that's the new traffic separation scheme the Iranians have put in, right? Well, apparently the blockade started yesterday morning at 10 a.m. The announcements went out through U.S. Central Command that they would haul over any ship that is bringing out Iranian oil from an Iranian port. The first vessel that apparently has gotten through this blockade is this vessel down here called the Rich Starry. The Rich Starry is a sanctions-breaking ship. It is a well-known sanctions-breaking ship. Whoever the captain is, he's like that Iraqi captain, my friend Captain Jassim that I knew, who was an Iraqi oil sanctions breaker back then. He don't give two flips. He gets paid big-ass money, right, to get millions, hundreds of millions of barrels of oil out of there. Now, this picture we're looking at are called AIS, right? The Automated Information System on here. But AIS is a computer system, and it is only as good as the input that you put in here. This AIS of the Rich Starry shows it off El Quwain, which is one of the 7 Emirates. And however, the ship, the Rich Starry, has a long history of being able to spoof the AIS system, which means it puts in false coordinates and claims it's in one place, shows the world it's in another. And the only way you can see it is if you figure out where it actually is if you can see it in an Iranian port. That red shape there, this is blurry satellite, is the rich starry refueling full of oil at an Iranian oil port. Here's another image of it from another angle. That, by the way, if those of you who can't recognize it, appears to be the Kaarsbo Island transshipment terminal. It reported to the world that it was down here at El Quain, which means it sailed all the way down from northern Iran with its AIS off, parked off El Quain, got some Scooby snacks and sodas, and then turned its AIS on, and then proceeded up north into the traffic separation scheme. Right? As it got down here off Oman, now this is where people are saying that it was intercepted by the U.S. Navy and ordered to go to the port of Fujairah. I have another belief. I believe that it was probably warned, but I don't believe that it was intercepted and sent to Fujairah. Here it is off of Dibba up here. I believe it's waiting for a sail, or it's going to Fujairah to do a ship-to-ship transfer to another ship. Why go all the way to China when you can just go back and forth and act as a shuttle and get paid the same amount of money for taking the risk? Right? We have seen no evidence that the United States in the last 24 hours has hauled over a Chinese ship. I have seen evidence that Malcolm Nance's analysis that I gave out 2 days ago, saying the Chinese have something to say about it, is going to happen. The Chinese Ministry of Defense made a statement yesterday. I'm going to show it to you. Exactly what I said they would say. China's Minister of Defense, Admiral Dong Jun, confirms Chinese ships are to actively transit the strait along long-standing agreements with Iran. That's the multi-pass route. Beijing explicitly recognizes Iranian sovereignty over the waterway and warns the United States, quote unquote, don't meddle in our affairs. What that
They basically
means
said,
is
fuck with us and see.
their Chinese captains are being told, do not respect this blockade. Period.
Just Malcolm, just one little. There are some indications that that statement is false.
Really?
Now, yeah, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has said something not quite as belligerent, but just word of caution, because I don't think that the defense minister has actually said something. That's at least the indications I have.
Okay.
That was circulated on YouTube.
Yeah, that was widely reported yesterday, and it came from.
Yeah, exactly. I have some indications that was false, but anyway, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has said something similar, that the shipping lanes should be open, etc., etc. Why? Because they have the easy pass. So, and they didn't give a shit when it was Iran controlling it. So, yeah. Anyway, just a little little pledge there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's insanely widely reported, and it got reported on some large news sites. So I will defer on that point. The problem is the Chinese are saying the same thing anyway, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. What I have been saying all along is this: what happens when the U.S. has a full-scale Chinese ship go through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And there is one ship left yesterday. It didn't apparently originate at a Iranian port. It originated in another port in the Gulf. It was Chinese. It did go through the Easy Pass toll booth, and the U.S. did not intercept it, right? So they're being quite literal about your ship must originate in an Iranian port, it must pass through, and then we'll intercept it. We'll see where that is and how that will go.
Exactly.
Trump is a mathematical genius. We just don't understand him very well. Yeah, he's thought about it very, very, very hard. And he said, if a negative and a negative equals a positive, then if I block the block, then the block must be unblocked. Yeah, so that's what it must be.
And this is interesting because there's a good site called G Captain. It's like merchant ship captain's website, and they're talking about the rich story being that apparently even as a sanction breaker, right? Either they spoofed it with AIS and the U.S. didn't care, right? It
Yeah.
ran the blockade. And we don't know whether that turnoff on the end was the U.S. Navy visit board search and seizure. Central Command has not said that they have turned back any ship yet, right?
Exactly.
But I personally think all it was doing was we know how to get back and forth through the Gulf. I can act as an Uber for 200 million barrels of oil, and I can get paid the same amount of money bringing that oil from Kaarsbo Island to Fujairah, transshipping it ship to ship, and then I go back into the Persian Gulf, and you can all kiss my ass. I make a bunch of money, and another ship that doesn't have to run the blockade takes that oil to China or to some other country. It's brilliant if you think about it. Shoot, if I had this, I'm telling you, if I didn't have this job and I wasn't running money and I still lived in the United Arab Emirates, where people came to me every week to sell me oil. I'm not joking. I would be calling my buddy Captain Jassim up in Basra, Iraq. I'd be like, hey man, can you get us a ship that can move, 50,000 barrels of oil? I'd be running that straight every day. And I'd be doing the same thing. Dubai, Fujairah, off ship it, go back through Dubai, Fujairah. I'd probably be, 100 millionaire in the matter of a couple of weeks. But no, I've decided to play it straight here. Even though Jassim has a place in my heart as my favorite pirate smuggling captain. Okay,
Speaking of ships and oil, Iran has 180 million barrels of oil floating at sea at the moment. Um,
yes,
and
that's on the water.
that's right. And China has 1.5 billion barrels of oil in their own reserve. So they've been preparing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Mario Nuafal, who I've been talking to on his show a lot recently, says Iran is reportedly considering a short-term pause on shipments of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz because they have that reserve you were just stating. Another part, what happens if Iran stops shipping oil out of the Strait of Hormuz? What happens to oil prices?
Yeah.
And the oil that is already on ships, those 23 ships that are outside of the Strait of Hormuz, become more valuable every day. So if Iran were to do that, they'd be announcing to the world that Trump has technically successfully strangled the Strait of Hormuz. And now we want more money for our oil. This is madness, madness, madness out there. Okay, there's a great comment by Mark Palomaropoulos. He's the guy who replaced me at MSNBC as the terrorism and intelligence analyst when I left to go join the Ukrainian army. He is a former CIA officer, case officer. And he says, looks like JCPOA number 2.0, right? Which is Trump is essentially re-arguing Obama's deal and maybe settling for the same amount of uranium enrichment, right? Which they already had, 3%.
Yeah.
A lot of DC pundits on the right may freak out, but inevitably will twist themselves into a pretzel and support that the United States may be coming back to Islamabad or Geneva this week, and we may be literally taking the terms that Barack Obama got in the JCPOA, but we know what the reason was the JCPOA failed. As the old cartoon says, what is it you hated about the JCPOA? And Trump says, Obama's signature,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And it's that song that they play on Stephanie Miller radio show, When the Black Guy Did It, right? When the black guy did it, it's bad. When the old white guy who wears diapers and orange paste on his face does it, it's good. Go figure, people. All right, that's literally all we have to report because all that's going on is the blockade and the negotiations. The last thing we
Yeah.
heard was minutes before the show. Oh, by the way, every time we close the show, something amazing happens, right? The blockade, the negotiations are going to take place in either Geneva or Islamabad. Islamabad wants them back to start again this week, right? And you all know, I can tell you, if you've been watching this show for some time, you know what time that's going to start. It's going to start Friday at stock market close. Right? So that they can manipulate the market. So,
Yeah.
let's see if we have questions. Let me see questions.
But again, just about negotiations, I will still say, you have like a new JCPOA where Iran gets market access and has, some wiggle room to do research enrichment. But again, you still have the issue of Donald Trump controlling Bibi and what's going on in Lebanon, because the Iranians need that to stop in order to be able to sign anything. I'm confident.
Yep.
So
A lot of go for it.
No, go on.
A lot of people don't understand about the nuclear peace negotiations, especially when the Obama administration was doing it, and or any administration. People who actually sit down and talk about nuclear enrichment are all nuclear physicists because the whole thing is mathematical. How many cylinders do you have? How many of those cylinders and what are their sizes? What's the
10,
capability of that
15.
cylinder? And if you have how many cylinders and what their capability, you can measure exactly how how much they are enriching and which level. And when they sat down and I did an interview with a former advisor for Hillary Clinton, a nuclear physicist, Professor DiPaola, he literally explained it in detail. It was very boring if you're not interested in nuclear world, but the whole thing is scientists sitting down with pads and notebook measuring things and like, no, I think you should take two more cylinders out or something like that. It's crazy. It's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
No, but the real issue is that since Trump pulled out of the JCPOA unilaterally, Iran has got more advanced centrifuges. There is no monitoring mechanism, and they've just developed their whole understanding of enrichment and how to approach threshold capacity.
Right.
And that's not something you can dial back because the knowledge is there. So, and, regardless of what Trump says, it's incumbent to get some regime in there to control it. And that's where once again, what can I say? Trump has scored an own goal of epic proportions.
Yeah, well, he loves those own goals. He's a master of that. All right, we only have a few questions. Let's
Yeah.
get through them, and
Yeah.
we can all move about our day. Ella says, is it possible to blockade as camouflage for preparation for an attack on Karg Island or elsewhere in Iran? Yes, that's entirely possible. I don't think any of those plans have stopped. General Kane would have been the kind of person to say, hey, listen, we have to be prepared for all contingencies. The 3,000 airborne troops are in Kuwait. We've got special forces in Israel and Jordan. We need to keep them resupplied, refueled, rearmed. So it's always possible. Linda Wyde says, my husband follows what's happened in shipping on Shipping YouTube. Do you follow that? Yes, I do. G Captain Sal Mercagliano, who's on Twitter, is just incredible. This guy is a merchant captain, and he sees through all the bullshit. I believe in every word of his reporting. So somebody says, David Magray says, Magray, like the famous French detective. Malcolm, with all respect, trading prices are the reason crude did not go up to $150 a barrel because market prices are markets price in expected outcomes. The markets do not believe the world will allow the strait to stay closed. For example, China won't stand for the nightmare or disruption. The markets are telling you the economy is changing. The markets are telling us that it's not worth World War III, and they have priced in the possible removal of Putin and Trump. Ooh, I like that. Then what will happen? There's up to 2 billion barrels of oil in the U.S. not pumping. What we need to know is, where are the troops? Yeah, there you go. All right. There's a comment here. That's the comment that you talked about where the foreign ministry said the blockade of Iranian ports is dangerous and irresponsible, warning it could escalate tensions and threaten a fragile ceasefire. Yeah. And Phil Sheridan says, Malcolm, hold on. Phil Sheridan thinks that I have a blind spot because I think Trump is stupid. I don't have a blind spot, and this is the reason why. I factor in everything that I see minus Trump, and then I place that within a line of logical action, progression, and belief. Everything Trump does. It's not, I used to do that podcast with Michael Cohen and Lev Parnas every week, two guys who worked for Trump. And they don't think that he's stupid as much as ignorant, right? He sees everything as luck, right? And he just doesn't believe anything other than what he says is true. Okay? Now, to you and I, this comes off as stupid. He is a moron. He is the most ignorant person to ever have sat in the Oval Office. He does not know what he's doing here. He is responding on a minute-to-minute basis. And when we read that 2 weeks ago, that press conference, where literally every other minute he changed its mind, you have to add in there that he has senility and dementia. He's 80 years old in a family that has early onset Alzheimer's, and he's overdue for Alzheimer's. So, but his cognitive ability to recognize what's good, what's bad, what's hurtful is zero. He's stupid. He really is stupid. Now, that doesn't mean, I know people that are stupid and evil. I know people who are stupid and clever, but that's no blind spot. I only watch what he does, right? I cannot be snookered when I see what he does. I can only know that his behaviors are based on this. I see the amount of I see his inability to focus on any one thing. Any cognizant adult could take insane amounts of advantage of that. But because you're watching this show, you are thoughtful, you are rational, you are a thinking, kind-hearted, empathetic adult. Therefore, he sees you as a non-factor. And that means your opinion, your expertise, your lived life experience means nothing. And he will kill you and your family if it benefits him in some direct or indirect way. That's just where we are.
And just to support you there, Malcolm, there's one issue, when we look at this from like a security, international affairs perspective, it's very hard to actually see that Trump does something good.
Yeah.
Because he scores own goal by own goal. In the Middle East, I will say one thing that he has probably done that I would say that's a good call. He approached the new rulers of Syria in a constructive way and
Mhm.
removed the sanctions, etc. I think that was the right course of action. So just to show, we
Yeah, but
can actually give the man a little bit of credit whenever he.
any president would have done that, right?
Yeah,
They de facto change of government, but
yeah.
giving him credit for doing stuff that any normal person would have done is they give him too much credit, right? I
Let's
This
be
is not going to
honest.
change until he starts hemorrhaging money. And I think the biggest factors for him are going to be when they announce quietly Trump Tower, Riyadh, and Doha and Dubai are not getting built because they're going to freeze their money. I've said this before. They did that in
Yeah.
2008. They turned off every purchase other than defense,
Yeah.
foodstuffs, and government, long-term government investments. They turned it off. No money was spent by the Emirates for 5 years. And then January 2013, they threw it on like a light switch, right? They lived off their interest income and eliminated their debt and got more cash. And all they did was export oil and natural gas, nothing else. Nothing
Yeah.
else. That's what they're going to do now. And that is when Trump realizes his legacy is that he destroyed the global economy, he's done. Right? Somebody's saying $6.75 for premium in Southern California. I drove up here from Albany, New York. I started at $4.25 a gallon, and only in Plattsburgh, because there's a refinery somewhere that somehow gets, I think it's Canadian. Plattsburgh, New York, it was at the cheapest at $4.13. No, $4.19. The entire trip across there, I saw it as high as 475. All right. And I'm not driving an F-150. Okay. I'm driving a Land Rover that gets 23 miles to the gallon. And it was almost $100 tank. So every average American that is suffering like this, it's bad. It's going to get bad. And the problem is MAGA and Republicans won't ever say they did this. Right? They won't ever say they did this, and it will sort of hasten the shock to reality, I hope. Okay, last thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens the coming 24 hours, about ships being stopped. What happens with the blockade? Let's see.
Yeah. Wajeeh?
Especially Chinese ships.
Yep. Waj.
I believe that the United States, the strongest country in the world, has an Achilles heel, which is the corruption in the Pentagon production system. And now we're seeing that being played in action where we could have spent fractions of the price of what we have been spending in our military and achieving the same exact goal that we have achieved throughout our years. Now, for every missile that we shoot for $20, Iran just needs $1 to respond to those 20 missiles. It does not make any economic sense. We might have a lot of power, but we also have a lot of corruption that has been draining our economy. Our debt has exceeded our GDP last year, and we are borrowing more money to keep this war going. And your economy is drying out. The petrodollar is coming to an end because the rest of the world is selling the oil no longer in the dollar, selling it in the yang, won, or the even Bitcoin. And now we are in a place we are desperate. If you think you are at a place of power, look again.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. Today, we will see you back here tomorrow. Hopefully, it'll be a relatively calm day, but I'm sure we are going to start spooling up towards the new negotiations in Islamabad or Geneva. Somebody asked, I think it was Carol Ann Connery, yes. It will most likely be J.D. Vance again. What I find fascinating is how they don't consider Marco Rubio, who is the head of U.S. diplomacy, and the national security advisor as being trustworthy enough to negotiate anything. Just as I think maybe he's focusing on Cuba, the invasion of Cuba, or something along that line. All right, guys. See you tomorrow. Same bat time,
See you
same
then.
back channel. If you are watching this on Substack, hit those little likey buttons with the little hearts there at the bottom real quick. If you are watching this on YouTube, it is a recording that has already been done. Please come over to Substack, malcolmnance.substack.com. Jacob Kaarsbo and Wajeeh Lion, you can subscribe to them and watch this program every morning. Do not doom scroll your life away going after this. It's not worth it. You will pull your hair out and you will cry all throughout the day. Let us do it for you and give you cognitive intelligence analysis, and your life will be happier and better. Please go out in the garden today. Do something nice for yourself, and we will see you right here tomorrow. I swear to God, I will send the schedule out right now. The scheduled live out right now. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
See you.
Bye.
Have a good one.